Namaste, namaste, family of light. Good to see everyone here. And a special hello to our Facebook Live light workers who um, will be either coming across this or you're here right now as we are doing it. There's no way for me to tell. But generally what happens for the Facebook Live like worker audience is that later on you'll see this chat, and because we deal with things that are beyond time and space, it doesn't matter when you see this. The information will be relevant, and also it is a uh, an invitation for those of you who come across this and say, hey, I would like to participate in that. It is open to the public. It is, in fact, a transmission, meaning energies from the ascended realms of the ascended masters who we work with, and various radiant ones that are all with the oneness and the unconditional love aligned themselves. It expresses itself in many ways, but most certainly that energetic does flow through. So there is this back and forth that's going on. I'd like to say that we are part of the spiritual hierarchy. We are the boots on the ground. We have the physical bodies, okay, and closest to the earth with that. And so we are very much needed in the ascended realms as we need the ascended realms. So it's one collective working with various levels of dimensions and realms and so forth, but it's all one. So hello, Gail from Alachua, Florida. Yes, joining the collective. Welcome, welcome. Glad to see everybody jumping on board, both on Zoom, as well as those that might be receiving this right now through Facebook Live, and of course, the ones that are physically here at the Cosmic Center of Spiritual Light, which is located in Sarasota, Florida, in the United States, because we have a worldwide audience. So there is some things I do want to talk about that are very relevant. Those who have been engaged in these several weeks, we already know we've been using the very powerful names of God, which are words of power, what our ancestors used. That's the concept of open sesame or abracadabra. These are vibrations. They have great power. And if you understand it and know how to use it as our ancestors did, can shift thought forms, can shift timelines and things of that nature. I've talked about thought forms before. Many of you know thought forms, and if you don't, it's easy enough to access thought forms. I've always liked what Lead Beater from Theosophy from way back when talked about thought forms. I think you could still get his book regarding thought forms. These thought forms originate from the thoughts of humanity that is within the earth, but also beyond as well, are thought forms coming from different beings, that you could say. And like, for example, the thought forms of the ascended masters, which is who we work with, those thought forms are uplifting and positive and coming from unconditional love and a higher light service and all of that. But there's also thought forms, both originating in the earth and beyond the earth, beyond the gravitational pull of the earth, of other thought forms that are not as prevalent because you live in this world of duality. So one of the things where we are right now in the cycle of things is the opportunity to bring this great ascension to this world along with a whole bunch of what might be termed as fallen worlds. And we're trying to get back into the higher alignment of this ascension, to be part of the paradise worlds, the Shambhala worlds, a whole bunch of worlds, okay, that are beyond the duality worlds, beyond the suffering, beyond all of that sort of stuff. So that's kind of like the divine plan. And if you're listening to these words, then you most certainly are part of that agenda. So we have to show up, as the ascended masters always say, thank you for showing up, because this is a higher service that we're doing for those that are awake or awakening. Okay, like, we say, well, gee, what would we can do in the world? And everything seems so, beyond. Well, you carry these powerful thought forms. You can shift things with your mind, and it has nothing to do with magic. It has to do with your ability. And it's just that we don't necessarily remember who we are and the power that we hold, and that we have to remember that energy follows thought. This is the thing. So all of us, I'm sure, have thought of something or said, gee, I should call so and so, or, I'm thinking of such a person, and then that phone rings, for example. That's just a common thing. Or, gee, I was just thinking of that, and here I see it. When that sort of thing starts to happen, you could say that's divine synchronicity, and you should pay attention to that, because those are signs and symbols that happen. There's so much communication that's beyond our language of the spoken word. And that, in fact, communication is way more than just this language that comes out of our mouth. So, but the most important things that we do have, that we carry as these spiritual beings of light that come, frankly, from the highest of realms, the Adam Kadmon. We don't originate from the earth. Okay, we originate on a much higher celestial level, known in Kabbalah um, as the Adam Kadmon. And so we're are divine humans trying to realign again with that part of ourselves, or the higher part of ourselves, to, as much as we can, to be of service to this humanity, to be of service of this creation. And if you're here and listening to this and open to it, then there's that part of you, your soul pulse, that's pushing you towards this higher service. And of course, it comes to us in many different ways. We all have our talents. We have our uniqueness that only we can do it. That's the most important thing. There's no one that can duplicate you, which is amazing. And also, when we say these names of God and, prayers or whatever, it is a frequency that's unique to you in the gargantuan harmonic of all that is. And I think that is so special that you can be identified. Okay. So how special is that? So what I want to talk about right now. Oh, first of all, let me just say this real quick. For those of you who would like to be part of the Anchoring Light Transmission Meditation, just go to our Facebook page. Look for Anchoring Light Transmission Meditation with Baba Sharon. That's me. That's my spiritual name. And just sign up. Once you sign up and register, you're available to participate each and every week. So we all know about what's going on in the Ukraine. And what makes this a little bit different, not unique, but a little bit different than, say, all the other wars that have been going in. If you look at the history of the planet, war has just been a part of that. That's the manipulation of the illusion that somehow we're separate from each other. So that's one of the biggest illusions on the planet. And also too, because we are in a creation of duality, meaning there's the polarities. For those of you who might have read the Kabbalion, which I might bring that up as a class once again, it is the 7 principles that everybody should know. One of it is the law of polarity. Divine Mother, an experience in 2010, said very clearly that when there is extreme polarity, that's when there is war. And she said back in 2010, and this is my mantra I say all the time, she needs somebody to hold the polarities into balance, meaning we can't engage in the drama, okay, of political, Democrat or Republican, male, female, smoker, non-smoker, military, non-military, all those things. We cannot engage in that. We have to come from the higher level of the neutral observer. And by coming from the neutral observer, we don't get triggered with that back and forth and can see clearly and be able to discern what's real and what's not real. Because I will tell you, that's going to become more amplified as time goes by. So we have to really practice our skills to be a light to the world, and also for us, not to get duped, to stay very connected and not be out of balance. One of the things I want to just share with everybody that was impressed upon me a long time ago and emphatically by the higher realms is that we can't get through if you're not balanced. That's it. We can't, you got to stay balanced. That right brain, that left brain, okay, that perfect balance, what they call the perfect balance. You must maintain that even in the midst of chaos. Because if you're part of that Cana, then your higher connection cannot connect or cannot be maintained. And so I've talked, and if you go into our YouTube channel, I've gone to how do you stay calm in the midst of chaos. One of the ways of your tools that you have available to you is to breathe. Because if you notice when you get upset or you get triggered, the first thing that happens is you stop breathing. Then when that happens, the heart starts to accelerate. Then when that happens is when the adrenal glands start to pump out the adrenals. And then when that happens, there's almost no coming back. It's like you could actually observe yourself getting upset. I'm sure we have all done like, oh, look at me. I'm really pissed off and enraged. Look at that, because it's like you have no control at that point in time. Hello. So one of the ways to mitigate that or to stop it is a very physiology thing, is to use the breath. All the great yogis and rishis and great masters speak of the breath. It's a reason for that, because we can actually modulate our own physiology through the breath, and we can stay calm in the midst of challenges and those triggers that, I could pick up my right hand and backslap somebody, but I don't, because I breathe. So we know those triggers that are out there. And then once you start and you get used to doing it, it becomes easier and easier, so less opportunity to rattle your cage. But now let's get to the business of the important business of what's going on the planet right now. So what's a little bit different about this particular timeline of Ukraine and Russia versus all the other wars is ever so often you have a particular dynamic that wants to trigger a world war. Okay, this is one of the triggerings. There's also another one is concerning China. Okay, there's been predictions on both. There's been predictions about the China timeline. There's also been predictions about the Eastern European timeline. And of course, there's the higher timeline of where there is no World War III or global war again. Not to say that the service to self, what I call the service to self, aren't really trying and working overtime. But guess what? Guess who's awakening and saying, wait a minute now, okay, we're not going to accept this. Now, we may not be able to prevent everything, okay, but we can most certainly mitigate it. So I'm going to share with you insight that came to me many, many decades ago. For those of you that are old enough, you may remember The Price is Right. It was a show on TV. It may still be syndicated. I don't know. But anyway, it was called The Price is Right for younger ones. And it was like you had to guess door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. And, if you guessed the right one, you got this fabulous prize. And if you guessed the wrong one, either one, you got some kind of a dud. So this was the analogy that was shown to me as to, and this is like, we're talking 30 years ago or 35, or I don't know, whenever it was, but it's a long time ago. And what was going to be happening into the future. And it was like our ascension process Okay, because it's moving forward. It doesn't matter who goes along on the board or not. We're moving forward. As Bob Marley says, go with the tide. That's not against it. It's going to move you whether you want to move or not. But our experience of it is dependent on us as a humanity, and also to a smaller degree as us as individuals. So the dynamic that's going on here is, say, door number one, easy peasy, not too bad, just a little bump. Okay, door number three is the bumpy, bumpy, bumpy ride, and door number two is maybe between the both. I'm shooting for door number two. Okay, I don't know if we could do door number one at this point because it is on the collective consciousness of humanity, and but we don't have to do the real bumpy, bumpy one. We could do door number two. And so what is that's going to require is the great awakening of the species from Adam. We are the Adamic race. Like, wait a second, we have some power here, because the world of illusion tells us that we don't have power. And if we look at stories of the ascended masters, you have ascended masters that are still on the planet that are as youthful as everything. Now they're now out in the public, obviously, like Baba G and others, but there have been many ascended masters walking that path of mastery, okay, that tells us we can do the same thing. And as Jesus the Christ, for example, and Avatars of Light has said, as I can do, you can do, and more. Okay, it's remembering who we are and to wake up to it. So the idea of thought forms, okay, you have a mental body. And the first thing you want to do is become aware that your thoughts have power. And there's a whole adage that says thoughts are things. Correct. We can dismantle through our thoughts, particularly when we come together as a collective, dismantle global negative lower thought forms, at least impinge upon it, that it is not as drastic or as negative. We can replace it with the higher thought forms that come from the ascended realms of light that are reaching out to us as we are reaching to it. And the more we do that, the more portals and gateways of light begin to open up around the planet. And we have been moving in that direction. So at this time, I want to say that with the situation, and I'm just going to say a dynamo of Ukraine, uh, Taiwan, China, and Russia, because that's the four quadrants as I perceive to be right now of potential to ignite a global war. We can stop that. We're not be able to maybe stop certain invasions and things like that, or at least we can put the energy of the resistance for that not to happen, but not to ignite another global war. We don't have to go through that experience, but we have to wake up to the fact that we do have the power and use our energy and our focus on holding the higher perfect peace. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, don't get too caught up in the drama. Always see that I see a solution. I see a higher solution. I envision peace. I envision happy people. I envision these, these uh, people shaking hands and agreeing, whichever way you want to do it, but keep on putting that information. We must hold the frequency of peace no matter what. No matter what's going on, just like anything else, the more energy you put into it, the stronger it becomes, the more prolific it becomes, and so forth. We got to keep that momentum going, because we have to try just as hard, if not harder, for the agenda that doesn't want that to happen. And that's why we got to show up. We have to show up. We have to get out of bed and we have to show up. So I just want to share with you, thank you so much for being who you are. Remember who you are and the power that you hold. That's the most important thing, the power that you hold. Okay. And I'll see you next time. Namaste.